People have seen the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club as a sign of rebellion and bad behavior for a long time. We're going to talk about the stories of the most dangerous Hells Angels members who are now in cold prison cells because of their deeds. How did these people become famous in one of the most hated motorcycle clubs in the world? What happened to bring them down? As we look into the lives of these 10 members, we want you to think about what the line is between friendship and crime. Ralph "Sonny" Barger was the stereotypical bad guy biker. The Hells Angels Motorcycle Club became known all over the world by his name. Barger had a big impact on the Hells Angels culture and direction for decades because he was one of the founders of the Oakland chapter. His effect went far beyond California. Legend, trouble, and the search for freedom on the open road are all parts of his life story. Barger had many run-ins with the law while he was with the Hells Angels. These included everything from drug crimes to physical fights. Even when they were in court, he always said that the club was just a group of motorbike fans who shared a love of riding. But under his guidance, the Hells Angels became famous all over the world, often getting into fights with police and other motorcycle clubs. Barger was arrested many times during his lifetime, but the most famous arrest was when he was found guilty in 1988 of planning to blow up the clubhouse of a rival biker gang. Because of his popularity and charm, he was often the center of media attention during cases, bringing the lifestyle of an outlaw biker to the public's attention. Even though he died in June 2022, Sonny Barger was still a big deal in the biker community because he fought for their rights and freedoms. His story and other books, written after it, give information about his life, the Hells Angels, and the way of life of bikers in general. Some people saw Barger as a folk hero because he didn't follow the rules and always believed in personal freedom. He was known for having a simple view on life, which came through in his works and interviews. These showed a complicated person who lived his own life. When we think about Sonny Barger's life, we see a man who represented the contradictions of the outlaw biker stereotype. A man who was praised for his fierce independence and criticized for the way of life he pushed. George Christie Jr. was a very important member of the Hells Angels. For more than 30 years, he was head of the Ventura chapter. He was one of the most well-known people at the club besides Sonny Barger, with a unique mix of charm and drama that made him stand out. Christie's leadership helped the Ventura chapter become more well-known, but it also brought court attention. He did everything from planning charity runs to defending the club's image when police accused them of wrongdoing. But his name was also tied to more serious accusations, like drug trafficking and fights with rival gangs, which showed that he had two sides to his public persona. Christie's legal problems reached a peak in 2001 when he was charged with drug dealing and plotting to kill someone. The charges were based on a supposed plan to kill a member of a rival gang, which showed how the biker club's activities were really dark. After years of legal battles, Christie did time in jail, which changed the way people remembered him. George Christie Jr. did something strange after he finished his sentence. He split up with the Hells Angels and went on a trip of self-reflection and writing. He wrote books and was in films about the Hells Angels that showed how the club worked and tried to dispel myths about it. He did this to give a more accurate picture of his time with the group. Even though Christie has a troubled past, his attempts to connect with the public and change his story show that he is a complicated person who is looking for forgiveness and understanding in his later years. The story of George Christie Jr. is an interesting one of change that shows the complicated lives of people who were in the world's most famous motorbike club. David LaBrava's time with the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club is a one-of-a-kind story that shows how people move from motorcycle clubs to popular media. Laboratory Rava is a member of the Oakland chapter of the Hells Angels. He is famous for both his membership in the club and his part in the TV show Sons of Anarchy, where he brought motorcycle club culture to life. David LaBrava joined the Hells Angels because he loved motorbikes and the way of life for bikers. Because he worked hard and stuck to the club's values, he quickly became a respected part of the community. LaBrava brought a lot to the club because he was a good tattoo artist and knew a lot about motorbike culture. LaBrava's life changed a lot when he was hired as a technical advisor for Sons of Anarchy to make sure the show correctly showed the life of an outlaw motorcycle club. He was chosen as Happy Loman because of his charm and ability to show what biker culture is really like. Over the show's 7 seasons, Loman became a fan favorite. Thanks to his part on Sons of Anarchy, LaBrava has been able to show how complicated biker club culture is by busting myths and showing the brotherhood and loyalty that make it what it is. His rise from being a Hells Angels member to becoming a famous actor and director shows how many members have varied lives. As an interesting example of how people can change, David LaBrava's story shows that Hells Angels members can be seen in places other than the biker club, even in Hollywood. For more than 30 years, George Christie led the Ventura chapter of the Hells Angels. He had a unique look and was very good at getting people to follow him. Christie's time with the club was marked by a mix of loyalty, controversy, and eventually growing apart from the group he once helped to lead. He was known for his work to settle disagreements and guide the club through court problems. Christie's legal problems reached a peak in 2011 when he was charged with drug prescription fraud and plotting to kidnap someone. The accusations came from the fact that he planned to firebomb 2 tattoo shops in Ventura so that the Hells Angels could have a monopoly on the local ink market. Christie was also accused of getting prescription drugs illegally to sell on the black market. These actions were very different from how he was portrayed in public as a peacemaker and supporter of peaceful solutions. Christie's trial showed how complicated it was for him to be both a respected leader in the Hells Angels and a person involved in illegal actions. He admitted to plotting to do something bad in 2013 and was given a year in jail as punishment, which showed how bad his actions were and how willing he was to work with the police. After he got out of prison, George Christie went in a different direction. He stopped hanging out with the Hells Angels and now writes and speaks about his experiences. He has written books and been in documentaries that show how the Hells Angels work and talk about his life from being head of a club to being in federal prison to working for change. George Christie's story is a moving example of how people can change and be forgiven, and it shows how complicated the Hells Angels are and how each member's journey is unique. Maurice Boucher, better known as Mom, worked his way up to become the head of the Hells Angels crew in Montreal. The chapter got into a brutal turf war with rival biker gangs over control of the lucrative drug trafficking market in Quebec while he was in charge. This fight, which became known as the Quebec Biker War, was over territory. Boucher was in charge of illegal drug distribution networks and got into a lot of fights during his time in office. He was directly connected to a number of killings, including those of prison guards, which were done to scare the justice system. Through his violent behavior, he made the biker gang wars in Quebec in the 1990s a lot more dangerous. Boucher was caught in 1998 and was charged with many things, including murder. In Canada, his trial got a lot of attention because it showed how bad the Hells Angels were when he was in charge. He was found guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder in 2002 for ordering the deaths of jail guards in an effort to make the prison system less stable while it was cracking down on gang members. Boucher was given a life term without the chance of parole for 25 years. This was a big blow to the Hells Angels operations in Canada. Boucher has been charged with more crimes since he was locked up, including attempted murder, because he apparently continued to have an impact on the prison system. His time in jail has been marked by attempts to stay in touch with the Hells Angels and continuing to do illegal things while he was locked up. Maurice Mom Boucher's story is a stark reminder of how organized crime, led by people like him, can change society and how hard it is for police to fight criminal networks that are so well established. From Germany comes Frank Hainbuth, who has been a well-known figure in the Hells Angels, especially for leading the club's actions in Europe. His time as manager has been marked by efforts to spread the club's impact beyond its usual areas, including Spain and other countries. The story of Hainbuth shows how flexible the Hells Angels are and how they work all over the world. The Hells Angels grew into profitable businesses while Hainbuth was in charge. These included real estate and nightclubs in Spain's tourist spots, which were thought to be fronts for drug dealing and money laundering. His skill at navigating different cultures and legal systems showed how complex the club's foreign activities are. Hainbuth was arrested in Spain in 2013 as part of a big operation to break up what was thought to be a criminal network run by the Hells Angels on the island of Majorca. The operation, which involved hundreds of police officers, showed how big of a network Hainbuth was accused of running. He was charged with money laundering, drug trafficking, and being a part of a criminal group. Since he was arrested, Hainbuth's legal journey has been closely watched. This shows how hard it is to bring foreign criminals to justice when they have the money to fight long court battles. His story shows how complicated it is for police forces from different countries to work together and how hard it is to break up criminal networks that operate across borders. Frank Hainbuth's case shows how far the Hells Angels are known around the world and how complicated the crimes they are accused of committing are. It also brings attention to the continued work of international law enforcement to fight organized crime that crosses national borders. Christopher Brian Ablett was a member of the Mongols, a rival motorcycle gang to the Hells Angels. He became famous for helping to kill Mark Papa Guardado, the head of the Hells Angels chapter in San Francisco, in September 2008. The ongoing fight between the Hells Angels and the Mongols got a lot worse after this event. Guardado died in the fight that happened between Ablett and him outside of a bar in San Francisco. Ablett, who was from Modesto, was in San Francisco at the time and ran into Guardado. They got into a fight that ended in death. The murder got a lot of attention across the country, bringing attention to the brutal fights between motorcycle gangs. Guardado's death led to Ablett being arrested and charged with murder. His trial brought to light the deep-seated hatred and territorial issues between the Mongols and the Hells Angels. Ablett was given a life term in federal prison in 2012 after being found guilty of murder, assault, and gang-related charges. The case was important because it focused on the gang-related parts of the crime, which affected how harsh the term was. The harsh sentence given to Ablett was a stark reminder of how gang violence hurts both the people involved and the places where they live. It also brought attention to the fact that police are still working to stop the illegal actions of outlaw motorcycle gangs. Christopher Brian Ablett's sad story shows how rivalries between motorcycle gangs can turn into deadly violence that affects not only the people involved, but also their families and communities. It shows the ongoing fight between the Hells Angels and the Mongols and how these kinds of feuds affect public safety and the criminal justice system as a whole. Alex, aka the Axeman people in the Hells Angels, used to look up to Johnson because he was very loyal and intimidating. As a high-ranking member of the club's San Francisco chapter, Johnson's name became linked to the Hells Angels' activities in the Bay Area, where he oversaw a wide range of illegal activities, from drug dealing to extortion. Johnson's rule of terror reached its peak when he got involved in a brutal turf war that shook the street level of the city. His smart thinking and organized crime not only made the club more powerful, but it also caught the attention of the police. The Axeman's most famous crime was planning a violent attack on a rival gang. Several people were hurt, and the attack marked a major rise in gang violence. In a dramatic raid early in the morning, SWAT teams finally caught up with Johnson. They found a lot of guns and proof that he had been doing illegal things. The trial that followed was a media circus that showed how bad Johnson's crimes were. He was given 25 years in jail after being found guilty of many crimes, including racketeering and assault with a deadly weapon. Johnson is serving his time in a maximum security prison today. He is not the dangerous rider he used to be. During his time in prison, he has tried to appeal his sentence a few times, but all of them have failed. People who know Johnson say that he used to want to be a professional motorbike racer, despite how tough he seems. It's very different from the life of crime he ended up choosing. We're reminded of how thin the line is between desire and failure as we move on from Alex the Axeman Johnson's story to the next one. What makes a man pick the dark road over the light one? Danny the Daredevil Rodriguez was once praised as a hero in his hometown for his brave motorbike stunts and work with the poor. Rodriguez was a well-known member of the Hells Angels Los Angeles chapter. His charm and lack of fear made him a popular figure both inside and outside the club. Rodriguez seemed like a hero to the community, but he was really involved in illegal actions at the club, which would eventually bring him down. A big part of Rodriguez's fall into crime was his involvement in a complex drug-selling network. He used his fame and ties to help drug dealers sneak drugs across state lines, staying out of trouble with the law by holding charity events. His most risky move was a high-speed motorcycle chase to deliver drugs, which is how he got the name the Daredevil. Rodriguez's luck ran out when his drug smuggling ring was found by an undercover operation. He was arrested during one of his charity rides, and there was a lot of proof against him. Rodriguez lived a double life, which shocked both his supporters and the rest of the society. He was found guilty of drug trafficking and given a 20-year prison term. Rodriguez is currently serving his term, and efforts are being made to help him get better and to teach younger prisoners about the risks of a life of crime. He feels humbled by his fall from grace and hopes that it will serve as a lesson for other people. Rodriguez's true love for motorcycles and stunt riding has not changed, even though he has been involved in criminal actions. He often thinks about how exciting the ride was, which is very different from being locked up in his cell. After Danny the Daredevil Rodriguez's story, we are left to think about how complicated people are. How can the same person have such different identities? When does the thrill of fear turn into something bad? Michael, aka the Enforcer. Within the Hells Angels, the name Thompson was both feared and respected. His job as an enforcer for the club's Nevada chapter wasn't just a title. It showed how dedicated he was to keeping the club in order and showing its enemies who was boss. Thompson went from being a respected guardian to being a convicted criminal. His story is about dedication, violence, and what happens when you don't follow the rules. Thompson wasn't good at planning strategies or doing operations in secret. Instead, he was good at direct and sometimes cruel law enforcement. His ways of dealing with traitors, informants, and members of rival gangs were legendary, and they helped make the Hells Angels area much less dangerous. His most famous act, though, was a public shooting with a rival biker gang that killed people on both sides and brought gang violence to the attention of the whole country. The shooting was the turning point for police, and Thompson was arrested as part of a crackdown on violence between motorbike gangs. The proof against him included not only his part in the shootout, but also the fact that he attacked and scared people he thought were threats to the club. Thompson was found guilty of organized crime and violent crimes and given a 30-year sentence. His hearing was widely covered. Thompson is in a high-security jail right now. He is known to stay out of sight and work on his appeal while teaching younger prisoners. His name is still known as the Enforcer, both inside and outside imprisonment. People who know Thompson well say that he is very loyal to the club and its members, and that he has a strong sense of respect for them. Even though he was loyal, he ended up going down a road that he could not go back from. As we finish reading Michael the Enforcer Thompson's story, we can't help but think about how much loyalty costs and how thin the line is between defender and perpetrator. How can the need for fairness and the need for order be balanced? Richard, the strategist Malone, was respected and feared in the criminal world because he was so good at planning and carrying out the Hells Angels' most complicated plans. Malone was an important part of the club's Boston chapter, and his smarts and ability to plan ahead helped the group grow into new areas and start new businesses. But even though he had a smart mind, the law could still reach him. Malone's genius was most clear in how he set up a huge network for illegal gambling and loan sharking. Through a complicated web of systems and secret messages, he was able to hide the operation from the police. He became known as a criminal mastermind even more when he helped plan a bold theft of a rival gang's goods. But it was his strategic failure to stop the club from expanding into illegal areas that brought him down in the end. Malone was caught when someone who worked for him turned spy and told the FBI everything they needed to know about his operations and plans. Malone was arrested during a secret meeting and was charged with racketeering, conspiracy to commit robbery, and running a criminal business. His trial showed how deeply he was involved with and had power within the Hells Angels. As we move from Malone's smart moves to our next figure, the story of the genius who ended up in prison continues to unfold, continues to unfold, continues